All week, they said all the right things, but when it mattered most, the Panthers couldn't get it done yet again on Sunday, losing in New Orleans. Let's try to make sense of it right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yes, of course, Friday. Your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show right here on YouTube, where I am live right now and live after every Panthers game. If you ever miss a live episode, of course, it's going to be here on YouTube, and you can listen to it wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Today's episode, Locked On Panthers, is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. My God. The Carolina Panthers 17, the New Orleans Saints 20. They did it again, y'all. They got your hopes up, and they ripped your heart out, losing this game in just ever so predictable fashion to the New Orleans Saints. And we talked about this even when I went live late on Thursday evening, early Friday morning, when reacting to Tampa losing to Atlanta, the Falcons giving the Panthers a gift, a golden opportunity to all they had to do. And we knew it was not going to be easy, obviously. Like, I expected this to be a difficult game for Carolina. I thought that they're going to have to drag it out and find a way to grind out a win, which obviously they did not do. No one thought it was going to be simple for this team, especially anybody who's been following this team for the last decade, where just things can't be easy ever for the Carolina Panthers, and a team that had a mature energy about them on Monday at practice. They return after the bye week. They were not mature enough to win this football game today. They're not ready yet. So I don't really know what else can be said about what happened today. I mean, I got to talk for at least like 30 minutes. I'll try to make sense of this loss. We'll look at some of the things that led to them losing this game on Sunday afternoon there in New Orleans. But you had it right there in front of you. A team that was a one-win team. The last time you're coming off of a massive win against the Green Bay Packers, you lost to them then, and then you had a massive win again against the Rams, who I still believe is the best team in the league. You had the bye week, you got healthy, you got the break of all breaks of Atlanta winning that game of Kirk Cousins under center, and Tampa just refusing to win the game as well on Thursday, and you go and do this. So, like, obviously it's frustrating. I'm sure that everybody out there who's a Panthers fan is ticked off about this result. Obviously, those guys are going to be ticked off about the result because they knew what they had to do and they weren't looking ahead. I gave you quotes all week long from Austin Corbett, from Mike Jackson, from Jalen Coker, from Trevor Etienne, from Taylor Moton, from everybody, every leader in that locker room. They all said the right things. And it still happened. They still failed to win this game. So I don't really know what else to say. They're just not there yet. And it always felt just a little bit too good to be true. And let's understand, they're still tied for first place in the NFC South heading into week 16. They still are 2 wins away against Tampa from being the division champs. They're still like a 1 win against Tampa, and then Tampa like losing, I think, to Miami away from also being division champs. So if everything works out as far as they win their final 3 games, or I guess, well, I don't know. We'll go over scenarios when I have a more clear mind at another point in time this week, but they're still right there where you want them to be. So there's no reason to like overreact to this loss. But obviously, like, it's ridiculous that this keeps happening, that they can't handle success. They can bounce back. So sure, I would not be surprised if they win next week at home against Tampa, because they have shown that when they start off 0-2, they can go out there and they can win 30-0 against Atlanta. They've shown that when they get their ass kicked by New England, they can come back from a 17-0 deficit and beat Miami, and then beat Dallas, and then beat an awful Jets team, but then they get blown out by Buffalo. Then they come back and have the biggest win of the season to that point in time against Green Bay. And we know what's happened since then, the yo-yo of this team. And I talked to Austin Corbett after the game against the Rams, and he said, we can't keep doing that. It has to stop now. And they did it again. They did it again. And they're just not ready for these moments. And that does not mean that they can't still figure it out. Just today, they were not ready to take advantage of this opportunity. That does not say that they can't get it done next week and that they can't beat Seattle and then they can't go on the road in week 18 and beat Tampa then. I'm not saying that at all. That still is very much a possibility. Have we seen anything so far this season to believe that they could do that? Not really. But if they're going to do the complete yo-yo of losing, winning, well, they're right now in the perfect pattern to where they would beat Tampa, lose to Seattle, then beat Tampa again. So if it's going to keep being like this, then fine. You'll live with it because it's supposed to be a win next week, then a loss the week after that, and a win after that. And that would be good enough for you to be NFC South Division champs for the first time in a decade. But it's hard to really buy in to their ability to close this thing out and to win this division because they couldn't even beat the Saints. It's not a good football team. Now, you got to give New Orleans credit. Obviously, Tyler Shuck has grown a ton since the last time Carolina played him, where it was just a couple of explosive plays given up by J.C. Horn that were the difference in that ball game. And, of course, some turnovers by Bryce Young and the Panthers' inability to run the football that day back in Week 10. So you got to give New Orleans credit. They get paid, too. They made the stops when they needed to. They prevented Carolina from doing anything in that fourth quarter offensively. Like, yeah. Good for them. They haven't quit on the season, which has long been lost. They never gave up. DeMario Davis, Cam Jordan, all those guys, they stood tall, and they wanted to find a way, even after what happened on Thursday, to come out there and serve at home, sweep Carolina, and prevent the Panthers from taking that one-game lead in the division and being one win away either next Sunday or the final Sunday of the regular season from being division champs for the first time in a decade. So, yeah, you got to give them credit. But yeah, maybe this is the final lesson. Maybe this was it, that they're still in it. They still have an opportunity next week, which is obviously the biggest game of the season at this point, where if you beat Tampa, you're right there in position yet again. And if you lose, then obviously things get very complicated. And I think they're kind of basically out of it at that point in time when thinking back to the tiebreakers, especially if Tampa is able to beat Miami in the common opponent. So like 9-8 doesn't really do you any good. So you just really need to find a way to win these final three games if you're the Carolina Panthers. But maybe this was the final lesson. Maybe this was the last loss to finally show them, oh, hey, we have to wake up. We can't have boneheaded penalties. We have to get the right play call in. We've got to be able to pick up a fumble when it's right there in front of us. We have a chance to put a game away. We've got to find a way to close. Like maybe this was it for them. Maybe it was, but maybe it wasn't. And it's just still a team that's very young, learning, trying to find a way to be better than they've been over the last couple of seasons, but they couldn't get it done today in New Orleans. And I ask, is anyone surprised by what played out today down at the Caesars Superdome? I certainly am not, but obviously disappointed that it's not going to be. It still could be a fun week, obviously. Still a huge game coming up next Sunday. Again, don't want to make too much out of it. But yeah, it's very just frustrating, disappointing to see it coming, to hope it won't happen, to know that, all right, the right energy, all the right things that are said, but it's far more important what people do and not what they say. We know that. If someone says, hey, I'm going to do this for you, and they don't do it, well, what good is their word? It's the actions. And so far, the Panthers' actions at this point in time do not lead you to trust that what they're saying will actually play out and come to fruition. And I don't know what they've said. I haven't listened to what Dave had to say. I haven't listened to what Bryce had to say. I haven't listened to what anybody in the locker room has to say. And quite frankly, I do not care. I don't care what they have to say at this point in time. I just want to see it out there on the field because you said all the right things this week, and then you still got the same result of not being ready for the moment, which they have proven time and time again that they weren't ready for, and then even times make you think that they are ready for it. So blown golden opportunity, but they're still tied for first place, and it's very simple as sweep the Bucs, and you're going to host a playoff game for the first time in a decade. Let's take a closer look at this loss. Penalties, they were killer, and the Panthers just could not close it out on Sunday. We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. The holidays are officially here, which means gift hunting season is on. And if you want something meaningful, personal, and guaranteed to get a reaction, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not just something you wrap. It's a way to share memories because Aura isn't your average picture frame. You can preload the frame of photos before gifting it. So when they plug it in, the memories are already there. No apps figure out, no setup headaches, just instant smiles. Aura is the perfect gift for grandparents, parents, newlyweds, or anyone who loves photos. Get endless uploads of pictures and 30-second videos through the Aura app. It's a holiday gift that actually gets used and not forgotten in a drawer. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off of Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, named #1 by Wirecutter, by using promo code LOCKEDON at checkout. That's auraframes.com, promo code LOCKEDON. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames sell out fast. So order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. The Carolina Panthers drop their road contest against the New Orleans Saints 20-17, a 47-yard field goal by the Irishman, Charlie Smith. Well, that was his name. I had never heard of him. And it was interesting as that drive was playing out where, I mean, guys, New Orleans starting at their own 8-yard line. Defensively, you cannot allow them to go down the field and get into field goal range like you did. So that was a failure by everyone on that defense. And, of course, the man coordinating that defense, Ejiro Evero. You cannot allow that to happen. But I was thinking about the problems that the Saints have actually had in the kicking game this year. Their former kicker, Blake Grupe, meanwhile, out in Seattle, he kicked a 60-yarder for Indianapolis to take the lead before Seattle kicked a 56-yarder to beat them later on. But that was a kicker that they didn't think was good enough for them. So I was curious, in a pressure situation, would this Smith fella find a way to make the kick? And, well, he nailed it. So as we saw, they got the win. But the penalties, that's really what I'm looking at from this game. They were killer. And let me say this first before we get there. I thought Bryce Young actually had a pretty solid game. That throw to Jalen Coker, we talked about the one a couple of weeks ago against the Rams being one of the best throws we've seen from Bryce Young. That throw to Jalen, again, was one of the best throws we have seen from Bryce. Like, he went out there and he did his job. And it's not like the numbers were eye-popping, because they really never are. 15 of 24, 163 yards through the air, had that touchdown, had a 96.4 passer rating. And really, it's the scrambles. When he gets flushed in the pocket on that final drive where they're trying to get the game-winning field goal or touchdown, whatever it would have been, score, and he's able to avoid the rush there on that 3rd and 10 and get up the middle. He did that several times in this game, had 7 rushes for 49 yards. So I give him a ton of credit for what he did in the pocket, delivering balls on time, and even also being able to get out of it and make some plays with his legs. So I don't look at Bryce at all as like, okay, he's the one, he's the reason why they lost this game. I felt like he actually played a pretty solid football game and took care of the ball, which first and foremost for him especially is what he has to do. When I look at the run game, that is an area that went away. I mean, Carolina, they still ran for 127 yards. We looked at it at halftime, going back and finding those halftime stats from today. They had 74 yards rushing. And you looked at Rico and you looked at Chuba. Both of those guys were having, solid days. 31 rushing yards for Rico, 26 for Chuba. So you added up, but that's 57 yards. And then at the end of the game, both of them had 49. But I just didn't feel like in the second half, especially, they had a lot of success running the ball. There were plenty of just 1-yard runs or negative rushing. So New Orleans really wanted to stand tall and stop them from running the ball. And I think that's something that really hurt Carolina, especially there in the fourth quarter when they were unable to close out this game and have some sustained drives and get down the field and to put it away and to score. So I look at that as a big reason why they were not able to win. Obviously, defensively, you're up 17-7. You cannot instantly, that one drive. Chris Olave has 1 reception all game long. Then he has 4 on one drive, and they're just back in zone coverage, which they play a ton of zone. This is not new, but the fact that they're allowing Olave, who had not been in rhythm, had an egregious drop, I believe, on the drive prior, that you allow him finally get into a rhythm and you let New Orleans go down the field easily, that can't happen. So, yeah, man, like I'm looking at the penalties. I'm sure there's people complaining about the officiating. The officials are not the reason why the Panthers lost the game. The Panthers are the reason they lost the game. New Orleans also had a ton of backbreaking penalties. I even look at some of those drives when they got a penalty that helped them, then they had a penalty that hurt them instantly. Like they did some dumb things in this game as well. But Carolina, man, I look at it and I felt like one of these plays that really hurt them and kind of changed the game was early on in the game when Bryce Young, scrambling out of bounds, gets hit by Cam Jordan, looked like he was still in. Well, I don't think that was a penalty, but then there still is a little extracurricular activity going on. Maybe a flag should have come in then. It didn't. All right. But then Ikem Ekwonu, I understand protecting your quarterback. I totally get all of that. And that what Cam Jordan was doing clearly was like line stepping, and it felt like it was over the line to where a flag should have come out. It didn't come out. You can't then go out there and push them and then get an unnecessary roughness penalty on you, which then kills the drive. And they're at a point in time where I felt like they were moving the ball down the field. I felt like they were going to go down there and score, whether it's been a field goal or a touchdown. You're about to take a 2-score lead early on the road and put a lot of pressure, which, I mean, there's not a ton of pressure anyways on New Orleans, but at least the game pressure for them wanting to win today, you put pressure on them, and you don't do that when you have that kind of decision that's made. That cannot happen for Mickey. And then later on, he gives up that sack to Chase Young, who just bull rushes him, and that kills the Panthers' opportunity to go down and win the game. So 2 mistakes that he has in this game are absolutely killer. You can look at the refs and say, why did you not throw a flag there in the first place? I get it, but you cannot then have a guy make the decision that Icky made that hurt his team. 11 penalties for 103 yards. I don't even have to look it up. I'm sure that's the worst that they've had this season. I cannot remember another game this year where it was flag all game long for both sides. So it wasn't just Carolina. It was also New Orleans. And I would be curious if heading into the game, Dave Canales and the Panthers were aware that they had an officiating crew that would call a lot of penalties. Some officiating crews call more than others, and they have that analysis. So maybe I'll ask that tomorrow when he speaks to us. But I mean, my goodness, like that was a terrible one. Then you have Trevor Etienne had a lot of good kick returns today. Return one to the 50. But there's an illegal formation penalty on Bryson Tremaine. Like that's one of the things that is truly unacceptable to me. Line up properly. Line up properly. You know what your job is. Go do it. I would never understand how you can have a legal formation. I just don't understand it. You have to be aware of what you have to do and be in position. And he didn't do that. So that's ridiculous that happened. And Carolina ends up not doing anything on that drive when you could have had the ball. And that's the drive where they got stonewalled on 4th and 1. But you would have been right there at the 50 in perfect position to go down there and to score again. Shaw Smith-Wade, I don't think he had a great game, but he gets called for offsides. And now it ended up with Carolina stopping Tyler Shuck and New Orleans on the next play when they decided to go for it. But you cannot make those kind of mistakes. It didn't hurt you in the end, but it's just dumb things. And even your team captains, your leaders, Derek Brown has an unnecessary roughness penalty, and it's tough. Tyler Shuck slid. He hit him. Didn't try to hit him late or hit him high. It happens. We saw it happen again later on in the game. J.C. Horn has pass interference. Should have been a PI. I don't think so because the ball was out of bounds. I mean, damn, that was not anywhere close for anyone to catch the ball. So I don't know. Shouldn't have at least been a legal contact or holding, whatever it's going to be. It's a penalty. So that's something that can't really happen. And then, of course, at the end there, I thought it was a great play call by Kellen Moore. If he calls plays, I don't know. But the quarterback draw, it was really even a draw, like right up the middle. I thought perfect play call. Shuck slides, Lathan Ransom hits him high. And then that gets called. And whether it should have been or not, that gets called every single time. We know the officials in this league are always trying to protect quarterbacks. Of course, not named Cam Newton, but he's not in the league anymore. But they're always trying to protect these guys. So it can't even be close because they're going to call it every single time. And you have to understand that. You don't have to like it, but you have to understand that's what's going to happen. So the penalties today especially were just absolutely killers for Carolina. And the fact that they couldn't close. You look at the 4th quarter offensive drive chart. You have the turnover on downs, which happened after they should have had the ball at the 50, but Bryson Tremaine couldn't line up properly for whatever reason. You have then a punt, and then the game ends on a fumble. You got to be able to close out teams. And they couldn't do it today. They couldn't do it offensively. They couldn't do it defensively. They could not get off the field. And there's plenty of times on like those like 3rd and longs that the defense was giving up. That just cannot happen. And it happened today. So it was the penalties. It was the inability to get off the field when you needed to. And something that Dave Canales brought up to the sideline reporter at halftime. They didn't do it. And instantly there in the second half in that third quarter, they gave up a long 3rd down. And right there, you're not executing what you just talked about in the locker room. And they did not do enough to win the day. So blame officiating if you want. They made plenty of mistakes. So did New Orleans. But the Panthers' mistakes ended up being critical and at the worst possible times and cost them the opportunity to have just one more game they needed to win next Sunday or in Week 18 against Tampa to be division champs. So they couldn't close it out. And a couple other things like the T-Mac drop, if we want to call it that. It's hard to tell. I was sitting there and I'm watching it. And as soon as that other hand came off, I'm like, they're not going to rule this as a completion, whether he controlled the ball or not. Obviously, he was kind of looking like he was using the ground, but like that's where he was. I don't know. Once again, you can't even give them a reason to overturn it. And they did. And again, the Ikem Ekwonu sack. Christian Roseboom had another golden opportunity right after Carolina went up 17-7. Mike Jackson just lays out the Tipton dude, and the ball's right there. Roseboom can't corral it. And that would have put you at least at a point to be up 20-7 or 24-7. And at that point, the game should have likely been over. And we're having a whole different conversation than the one that we're having right now on this show. So they couldn't close. They couldn't take care of the opportunities that were right there. And just the boneheaded mistakes and the penalties killed them today in this game down there in New Orleans. But again, they're still tied for first place, and we'll see how they respond next week. We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked on Panthers. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time with FanDuel. You can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment, live spreads and money lines just instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. So again, it's a frustrating Sunday afternoon and one that I'm sure everyone had somebody within their fan group, Panther Circle, that said they're going to lose as soon as we saw it happen on Thursday night. And even when I was doing that show live, just like incredulous of that we were here in this position where we were having the conversation about the Panthers winning the division, going to week 15, having a half game lead before they played their game against New Orleans. It was, Twilight Zone stuff. And it was really just a dream because it obviously did not play out that way as of right now as they lost this game on Sunday against the Saints. But the season is not over. The goals that they have are still within reach. It's still in their control. They've made it a lot harder on themselves. They certainly have. And I remember having a conversation with somebody earlier this week about the possibility that Atlanta could win. And then Carolina could then just need those 2 wins against the Saints. And then the next week against Tampa. And then they could have 2 weeks where they didn't have to play anybody. And that person told me that seems pretty far-fetched. But after the game on Thursday, I was like, how far-fetched is it now? Yeah, pretty far-fetched. And that person's been around here for a long time and seen everything with this team. So yeah, I should have, and I listened to them. I believed them, but I was like, oh, well, maybe after what happened on Thursday. But yeah, they weren't ready for it. They were not mature enough. They had a mature energy at practice this week. They said all the right things, but as far as where this team is in its build in year 2 of Dan Morgan, of Dave Canales, throw Brant Tillis in there as well, year 3 of Bryce Young, the starting quarterback, they just aren't there yet. And it's so difficult because a lot of these guys have not been around for these type of moments. And even like when asking them over the last couple of weeks, like they really barely even bring up 2022 when they were right there with a chance. Had they just beaten Tampa on the road in week 17 to win the division, they don't really look at that as an opportunity, something they can learn from. And yeah, there are guys like Austin Corbett that has been on a Super Bowl winning team with the Rams. Like there were guys like him who have been on winning teams before, but like you look at just like the leadership, like JC's never really, he wasn't there for that game in 2022. He was hurt. Friendly fire, broke his wrist, wasn't in that game. You had guys like Taylor Moton, who was on the last time the Panthers went to the playoffs, but it's been a long time for him, and he wasn't a contributor on that team back in 2017. He was on the bench, learning as a rookie. Like you look, Derek Brown, he's not really been in these spots other than that game a couple of years ago. So you got to learn how to win at this stage. And right now, where they're at in their maturation as a new kind of rebuild here, they're just not ready for the moment yet. That does not mean to say, as I said earlier, that they cannot be ready next week and then in week 18 and hell, in between then week 17 and actually finally arrive there. But right now, very clearly from what they've demonstrated on the field tonight in New Orleans, they're not there yet. But you look at the scenarios, simply just win your last 3 games and you're in at 10-7, or just win the 2 games against Tampa Bay. When looking at it again, if they are both 9-8, if they split, if Carolina, because I have a hard time believing that they are going to beat Seattle. Sam, for all his faults he's had in his career, he's had a good season again up there in Seattle. If you don't put pressure on him, you're going to get picked apart. And Jackson Smith-Njigba has been amazing this year, and that is a great defense. I just don't really – and look, I also didn't think they're going to beat the Rams. So, but that seems like a pretty tough matchup to get there. So, the common opponent tiebreaker, we've talked about it. If they're 9-8, and so is Tampa, they're both tied 3-3 in the division. The next tiebreaker after head-to-head and division record is common opponent. Carolina will lose that. So, they really have no choice but to win both those games against Tampa, or for Tampa to find a way to slip up against Miami Dolphins, which is possible. I just, again, have a hard time believing a team with no pass rush is going to beat the Seattle Seahawks this season. I have a hard time seeing that. Even if it's at home, it's a cross-country road trip, they're playing at 10 a.m. body clock time, it's Sam Darnold in a big spot, have a hard time still believing they're going to get that game. So they really need to get the game next Sunday and then the game back in week 18 down in Tampa if they want to be a playoff team. There is no path to the wild card. Even heading into the day, there really was no path to the wild card. The only path forward is by winning division, and that means beating Tampa Bay. So you put everything you have into those 2 games to end the season if you're Carolina. That's not punting on Seattle. Obviously, you got to try to find a way to win that game, but at 9-8, if you end up not beating Tampa the other time, you're not getting into the playoffs. So, or 10-7, whatever it would be, because what they're seeing, 7-7 right now. Yeah. So 9-8 is not going to be good enough for you. So they're still in it. It's not, the season's not over. All your dreams and possibilities are right there for you. And for the Panthers, they have just made it so much more difficult than it needed to be. But isn't that the Carolina Panthers? Of course, after all this time, it's got to be hard. It can't just be easy. And in the end, it would only make it even more gratifying that they put you through all this hell just to actually get out on the other side and be division champs. So show up on Sunday. Be loud. Be proud. Try to pick these guys up. Be pissed off throughout the week. That's totally fine. You can do that. I'm not going to begrudge you for doing it, but find a way. If you have the means, find a way to get to the stadium next week. I don't really have the appetite to just crush them for I've gone over all that they did wrong, and I've gone over that. I'm not surprised by this result, and I don't think that this team is at that stage where we can trust them to win these games, and they have not demonstrated their ability when it's on the line here to get it done. Yeah, they could still do it, but we'll see whether that's the case. So, awful loss, dumb decisions throughout, and this is what you get. You lose to the Saints again. So you swept Atlanta, you got swept by New Orleans, and now you're playing a team that's in free fall mode where their coach drops 7 F-bombs in a rant on Thursday night, and they're absolutely going to be wanting to get after you. And we know how Baker Mayfield is. So we'll see how that game plays out next Sunday. But in the meantime, it is absolutely one of the more frustrating losses Carolina has had in recent memory to the last time they did this back in week 10, losing to the Saints yet again, 20-17 on the road. But they're still tied for first place in the NFC South, but will need, in all likelihood, to sweep the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in order to get into the playoffs this year. But that's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all subscribe, follow the show free over on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and over on Blue Sky, where on Wednesday, I'll answer all the angry questions that y'all have here for the weekly Wednesday mailbag. At me or DM me over on Twitter or Blue Sky at Julian Council. You get those questions into me right now. In the meantime, be safe. Try to be happy, be whole, and as always, keep pounding. And we'll be back on Tuesday as we'll react to what Dave Canales had to say after reviewing the film and go over the good, the bad, and God, it was ugly from this loss as the Carolina Panthers fall 20-17 against the New Orleans Saints.